What's up, guys? Welcome to this week's video. It is cold today here in Mississippi. We're about to pull the Toyota in and we're gonna start cutting some rust out. We're gonna start trying to get the inside started and in the back and get the fender well area, kind of get all that patched up. Like I said, it's cold, and so we're gonna get it pulled in here. We're gonna work as long as we can stand to work because I don't have heat or anything here in the shop. And but as they always say, there's heat in the tools. You get to working and you warm up. So we're gonna get the Toyota pulled in here and we're gonna get to fixing it. All right, so where we're gonna start, these are kind of some of the hardest places, is we're gonna get all of this and this, kind of get all of these back here in the back seat area stuff fixed first. So this is where we're gonna begin. I like to start on the hardest places, at least what I think is gonna be the hardest places. I like to do that first, go ahead and get them out of the way, and then we'll move on and go from there. We're gonna get this inside back here all snugged up and fixed. The easiest thing I think is gonna be to do, we're just gonna pull the wheel and cut it from out here. Do all of our cuts out here, it'd be just easier to cut. And we'll remove those seat brackets. We'll take those off, clean them up, fix whatever we need to fix on them, weld them to the new plate when it goes on, and that'd be done. So we're gonna get to pulling the wheels off and cutting out some metal. All right, so here's what we're doing. I'm taking my spot weld cutter here. Got this from Eastwood. I've had this thing for years. It did the entire Super B. Was taken apart with this chisel and that spot weld cutter. I did the whole entire car that way. But this is what we're doing. We're just drilling out the spot welds on this plate, taking the chisel, breaking it loose, to try to get this plate off right here. So we're gonna get this whole plate off, and then that will give us access to the metal behind it. We can cut and clean. Obviously, probably won't be putting this plate back on. We'll just probably go back with a flat sheet of steel. I got this plate off. That was all nasty in the middle, but so I got there, and I'm assuming this is, all these are supports for the seat, the rear seat mount, which is the back side of it's right here. So we're gonna cut a clean space around and just go back in with new. So there, it's got the back bumper off. That is completely rotted through. Making a mess all over my floor. No, he had to cut every bolt off because shockingly they were all seized. I've got my tape marks so that when I'm cutting, I can make sure I just keep a straight line so I'm not doing this number, and to make it a lot easier to make a patch panel for this spot. So I went out as far to where there was clean metal, no more rust. I want to leave as much of the original metal as I can. That's always a goal that I have. I want to try to save as much original metal as I can. It's already there. It's still clean. We're going to clean back and treat and make sure everything's okay around it. But I don't want to cut out no more than I have to. That's always a goal of mine, and no matter what I'm doing. So I know all this underneath there is probably going to be rotten too. But I still like to take things layer by layer so that I can see, because when we rebuild it, we're going to rebuild from the inside out, obviously. So I kind of like to see how things are put together so that I can put them back that way. So it's just kind of something in my mind. You're not going to be in a rush. I'm just going to take my time, peel this thing like an onion till we get to the inside. Running out of battery over here.
I got batteries.
I got one charger.
I got that big battery right here on this guy. Here, right on that bad boy.
Man!
Throw it at you.
Good night.
Yep.
That's gonna blow my drill up?
Might give it power you never had before.
Well, I tore it up, but the floor actually ain't really rotted under there like I thought it was gonna be. Let me get it kind of.
Of course, go a little bigger than that.
Yeah, play with it some, but just to get a starting point.
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, all right, day 2. Yesterday, I got out here and pit a little bit, but it was just so cold and I just didn't have any motivation. So we're back out here today. We got our hole all cleaned up around. I couldn't find any weld through primer, but I had some Still-It left over. Y'all know I love that stuff. It's weldable. So I just sprayed all of my floor here, the side of the floor pan, with Still-It. It was clean metal, no rust in there, but I just put a coat of this so that once the plate is sandwiched on there, that, you know, it won't be able to start rusting. In between, got our plate here cut out. I've got a couple of spot holes drilled, and I painted the backside too, so that everything sandwiched between would have a coat on it, and we wouldn't have to worry about rust starting in between. So the way that I'm gonna do this on this is not technically the same way that I did on the Super B over there. On my Super B, I was very particular about every single area looking back exactly like it did factory. We're not really going for that on this. Now, one day, if Eric sells this thing and the person gets it and wants to do an accurate restoration, they're free to do so. But we're looking more for function right now than we are, I guess you'd say, form and correct. So we're gonna do it right. It's gonna be durable, it's gonna last, and it's gonna look good. It just may not be, for the purists out there, completely factory correct. So this piece here was all it was shaped in, it had an inset to it. You can see over on the other side kind of the rough shape that it had. This is going to be a little bit different, probably just more smooth shaped, but it'll be there, it'll be solid. It won't be a rust hole, and you know, it will be what it will be. The insert out here is going to be covered with undercoating anyway, and on the inside is covered with the fender well covers over there on the floor. So you're not going to even see any of this anyway. But what we're going to start with, the way that I'm going to do these, because this does have, I don't know if you can tell on there, but there's different shapes. It goes in, goes up, it's got round up here, and it's different. It's a crazy shaped little piece. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna start with a couple of spot welds down low, and I cut my spot weld cutter a little bit too far on this, that's what that is. I'm gonna get a couple spot welds across the bottom, and I'm gonna just start sewing it up here and here, and I'm just gonna bounce back and forth, working my way up. And as I go up, we're gonna just take the dolly hammer and just be shaping it and beating it into shape. And we may even have to trim some off of the patch panel to get it to fit in there a good snug fit, and all will be well. An easier option to do on this, you've got 2 different kind of welds that you can do when you're replacing panels. You can either do a butt weld or what's known as a lap weld. I don't like lap welds. They're easier. They're way, way easier. But I just don't like them, and I'll show you why. So a butt weld is essentially, you take your 2 pieces of metal you get them, you know, side by side like that, and you weld up the seam. A lap weld, you would lay this piece of metal on top of that one, and you could either drill spot welds all the way around and just lay this on top of it, go through, do your spot welds, and be done. You can do that. But I always am skeptical about that little layer in between the two pieces, and because that's a place for moisture to just get in there and set, and that's exactly what rots these spots out, because you had a plate on top of a plate with a seam here. Moisture gets in there. Once it gets in there, it just sets. Mud gets in there. Mud gets wet. It becomes a permanent wet sponge on the spot, and there you go. So I like to do things where there's the least amount of possible space for moisture to get trapped. So we're gonna butt weld this one up the seam, shape it as we go, and hopefully it'll look good. So big panel is welded in, grinded. May do a little more grinding on it. I'm not shooting for just perfectly, beautifully smooth in there, okay? I'm not trying to make excuses. When I get out here to the outside, to the visible stuff, we'll obviously take a little more time. On these inside places that are more just for structure, I get it looking good, but I'm not just as meticulous as I am on like an outside body panel. It's inside, it's gonna be completely covered up. You're never gonna see it. It's more, like I said, just for structure than anything else. But you can see it's in there. It doesn't look like a funny shaped piece from here, but it goes in, it curves around, it curves this way. It's got a bunch of crazy curves to it, but it's in there, contoured out pretty good. We got a few spot welds right there across the bottom to tie it into the floor. So it's good and tight in there. It's sewed up all the way across. I had a mistake at the top. I kind of got ahead of myself, and I was hammering and going up, and I, for some reason, decided to go ahead and cut the top off before I got to the top, and I cut it too short. So I had to kind of put a filler piece in there and weld all that up. So it didn't turn out as clean across the top as it probably could have, but that was just me getting a little bit ahead of myself. So next is going to be this place right here. Now that's actually just extra floor that they've got in. I mean, that's all, that far up is just overhang till you get to the floor is like way up here. But we'll fix that spot and get that patched up out here, but it translates into in here. And so we got this sound deadening material. You can see it kind of comes up. We're clean. Floor looks good back here. You can see the line, so we'll probably slice it back here somewhere, across here, back over here. You can see this on the inside. You can see right there across the top is not as clean as I would like it to be, but it's, if we wanted to, we could take a little filler and rub over it and block it out. But there's a cover that goes over the top of this, so you won't see it anyway. But we may do that just to know that it's done nice. I still got a little pinhole there I gotta weld up, but it's solid. You can see the seam with the floor there, nice and tight, so no issues there. Nice solid piece. So that's in there good. Now we'll move on to this, get this cut out and fixed up, and then we'll go to that side. All right, we got our piece cut. It's fit in there. All looks nice and snug right around the fender well. Ready to go in. So here's what we got. James Davis, what do you think about that, buddy? How's them metal shaping skills there, bud? My buddy James is he teaches metal sculpting and stuff like that. He's a fantastic metal shaper. This is not what I would call fantastic metal shaping, but it works for our purposes. all this is cleaned up, coated, I treat everything with a rust converter spray, let that soak for a while, and then I coated it all with Steal-It. I ordered some of the stuff that I love to use called Rust Bullet. I love putting Rust Bullet. That stuff seems to hold up and seal off really, really well. But we're waiting on that to come in, so we're using Steal-It for the moment. It'll work well enough. We've also coated the bottom of our plate with that. And we've got all of our spot weld holes drilled. So I know there's a lot of people out there that freak out about rust and all that's going to come back to bite you. I've heard it all. I know. And I know that the only way, honestly, to have this thing properly would be like to dip it or something where every single nook and cranny is getting soaked. But for what we're doing, this is all gonna work fine. Eric's gonna have many, many, many years of enjoyment out of this. How do I know? Because I've done less than this on stuff 10 plus years ago, and it still looks and it's holding up fantastic. So anyway, okay. So, all right, so we're getting started. We've got all of our spot welds in, all the way up and around. We've still got tacks all the way around. Now, most of you probably know this, but anytime you're welding sheet metal, it's not like welding thick angle iron or something like that. You have to kind of go like here, over here, tack over here, and you just kind of have to bounce around, doing kind of sewing it in. And that's to keep it from warping too bad. Now, in here, not that big a deal. It's on the floor. It's got spot welds and support and all that kind of stuff. So I'll be able to kind of sew them in a lot easier on the floor. But if you were out here on a quarter panel, you definitely want to just go ahead and set it in your mind that it's going to take a little while. Don't get over anxious and try to do long beads, or your panel will just, it'll be wavy like crazy. So when it comes to welding up sheet metal, it just takes a little while, slower process. Not so much in here. We're still gonna take our time in here a little bit, but not nearly as much as it would be if it was outside on a quarter panel. All right, so we're getting ready to put our piece in here. You can see our old floor tabs coming down for our spot welds to go on to. This is gonna be a simple little curved piece, but you gotta get all that undercoating off around it for obvious reasons. That stuff can be tricky. I use one of these wire wheels for just little spots like that. Depends on what good a condition your undercoating is in. Wire wheels work the best versus a flap disc or something like that, because flap disc and grinding discs are going to build up heat, and when that stuff gets hot, it just wants to kind of smear around and stuff like that. The wire wheels don't build as much heat, so they can take it off easier. But just a little tip, I had to strip the entire bottom side of the Super B. The whole bottom side was undercoated from the factory, and I had to strip all of that off. And the thing that I found the best was aircraft remover. So my process was I would brush on aircraft remover, the paint stripper, let it set, and then I would take a flat scraper, scrape off the bulk of it, and then finish off with one of these wire wheels on a grinder. I had some on a drill, and just clean the metal up to get the little residue off with that. And that seemed to be the process that worked the best. I tried just heat, I tried all kinds of stuff, but that always worked the best for me. Now, we're not stripping this whole fender well or nothing like that, and it is going to get re-undercoated, but just to clean off a single little spot, this stuff's not on here real thick, one of those little wire wheels works the best. So we're welded in here. Not worried about getting all these just completely flush. It's so wavy and stuff on here, it's hard to, I'm not worried about that. We'll probably just take some seam sealer. I don't see any light coming through, no daylight or nothing nowhere, but we'll probably just take seam sealer just to be safe, run a little bead around all of our welds just to make sure they're sealed off. And then we're gonna undercoat all this under here. It's not a big deal. So floor pans all in here. All of this is, again, I don't even know if I'm gonna grind all that down because it's gonna be under carpet and all that kind of stuff. Like I said, more about being solid under here, which that's very, very solid. We redid the braces under here. All that was real good. The factory I'm running across here was still in good shape. No issues with that. So now, this guy. I don't know how well it's showing up on here, but got a rust hole right here. It looks to be just the top floor pan, because the front same brace that runs here runs under right here. And looking through there, it's a little rusty, but it's not like rotten or nothing. So I'm gonna try to just cut out just the top without going too deep with the cutting wheel. and see if we can clean up under there, treat that, and then put us a piece on top. This was just from, I'm assuming, water getting from the inside in here and just puddling up down there in the bottom, because from the underneath it's completely sealed off and everything under there is solid. So that would indicate to me that it's more likely water was coming up through this hole, running down into the lowest spot, which would be right there, is what I'm thinking how that got there. So we're getting all these cleaned up. What Eric's doing over here, he's getting that one broke loose from the plate there. This one's off. You can see there's not much left. We're going to put them in the blasting cabinet, probably just clean them up on the backside, and then try to figure out some other way to get these, but they'll mount to that plate there like that, and then that's what your back seat back part goes into. We looked online, didn't see anybody that sold these. They may be out there and we just didn't see them, but I didn't see anybody that remade these. So we're just gonna have to try to make this work somehow. But that side over there is pretty much done. We just got it. You can see it's a little seam sealer's got to go in around the edges. This side's cut out, and finna go ahead and get this plate cut and put back in.
Get this off. Wish I maybe just cut it off.
So I was about to ask, once you just cut it off.
Yeah. That's some.
You're not gonna use those, are you?
No.
Why? Why is it even an issue?
It's not an issue. You're making it an issue. Yeah.
Why is this thing smoking?
Because it had stuff in it.
What you been doing to it?
That's just dirt.
I didn't get it perfect, but
Oh yeah. See, what was so hard about that? You trying to come in and take over my project?
well, I'm waiting on paint
You
to
gonna
dry.
use that?
I'm waiting on paint to
You gonna
dry.
use those? You can just drill a hole and it'll
Little
leak all
drain
the
hole?
water out.
This one's got water in it too, it's just not rusty.
Yeah.
It's that high quality seal beam.
Don't want to throw sparks on your car. On your car.
$1 million question. Will it break?
I doubt it. Said you got a big hammer?
Well, that's gonna probably do it for this week's video. We're still working, but Andrew's got to edit to have this out by Thursday. So that's gonna wrap up everything we can get this week. So just to kind of recap real quick where we are, Eric's kind of getting his front bumper situation figured out, what he wants to do here. So he's been cutting up this bumper he had off of another old Jeep project, and he's gonna make it fit there. We've got this fender well is solid now. So all this is good. I got the bigger piece in over there. That piece is ready to go. Tomorrow, I'm gonna start cutting out the floor there, and down in that little corner is the same as down in here. So I'll tack both of those things. We got the seat deals cleaned up. We got them cut off of the old rusty plate. We're gonna get them cleaned up now and start figuring a way to mount them back there where we can get the back seat put back in eventually. But our plan of attack is we're gonna finish up here. Hopefully by Thursday I'll be done in this little back tight area, which is, I knew was gonna be the worst. It's hard working in here, it's just so confined. But we'll get that all done. Then we'll probably move. I got to pull this door off and this fender off so that I can smooth that joint out right there where they just got all folded up and mangled. So we're going to just pull them off so that I can clean that edge up. And it will also make it easier to get in here and fix the floors. So we got to get all that sound deadener off. That's what that is. Got to get all that off and repair the floors under there as well as on the other side. So we'll get that off. So we'll get done back here. Front floor pans, we'll get them done. Door and fender straightened out and get them put back on. And then we're going to put it on the lift so that we can work on the rockers, get them fixed up. The back quarter panels back here, we want to get them fixed up. And all of that would just be easier to do on the lift. Eric thinks he has located a new hatch and tailgate, so that will be awesome, not having to fool with that stuff. So we're hoping that that goes through. And what we're thinking about back here, you can see we've been like kind of looking at some tape, is instead of replacing the quarters all the way down, is making a clean cut straight across. The tape's not really that straight. Across that body line, this is a popular thing that a lot of people do on the FJs. It's just to cut that straight off. We'll plate it, tie it all into the inside, and give a little bit more ground clearance back there in the back. So Eric kind of wants to go that route. I was skeptical about it at first. I wanted to put full quarters back on it, make it look like it was supposed to. But I got to looking online, and it actually looks pretty good. So I'm kind of with him on that idea now. So we're going to just cut that off and cap all that and plate all that in where to be protected. It'll look cool. And we're moving really, not making crazy fast progress, but we are getting there. And so hopefully over the next few weeks, couple of weeks, we'll have all the rust pretty much done. It'll be back solid. We'll start getting ready to put the lift kit on, getting the D8 out, getting ready to paint, all that kind of good stuff. So maybe by the time we're ready to paint, the weather will be kind of warming back up, and we can get on that. So appreciate you guys watching and hanging out. I know we've kind of had just pretty much solid FJ content lately. We're hoping to get in termite and go kind of do a little camping trip here shortly or do something. But as I've been saying, it's running fantastic. It's doing fine. There's not really much we can do right now to termite. I will say that the Hemi swap, we've talked about that. That's been in the very distant future. But lately, Andrew and I have both been talking about it a lot as maybe something we're kind of considering doing sooner than later. So stay tuned for that. We're kind of looking at some options there of possibly maybe starting on that sooner than we anticipated. But anyway, other than that, thank you guys again for watching, for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. We'll see you guys next week.
Do I like it? Yeah. Doesn't matter what I like. You know what you like.
No more hole.
Besides them fingertips.
Alright, Andrew's gonna have to feed me now because I can't use my hands.
I can always tell when Wes is welding in the shop.
We haven't shown this, but see if you can get a glimpse of the mud that is underneath this thing. Absolutely just caked. This thing had half Alabama in it. Oh my God. Lightweight.
Weight reduction, boy.
Better fuel mileage.
Yep. No more squat.
Yeah.